You're live.
You're the only officer here, sir, so proceed.
Well, just introductions as far as the, so this is the Friday, today is Friday, May 15th, 2015. This is the Budget Committee meeting for the Devils Lake Water Improvement District for fiscal year 2015-2016. My name is Paul Robertson. I'm the manager of the Water Improvement District, and maybe we'll just go right around and introduce each other.
Mitchell Moore, a member of the Budget Committee.
Randy Weldon, board member.
Susan Waukee, Budget Committee member.
Ed Willett, Budget Committee.
Brian Green, board member.
Doug Holbrook, Budget Committee.
Kent Norris, board member.
You have to get right in the mic, too, when you speak, Robert.
David Scriven, board member.
And Kip Ward will be joining us soon. He is just finishing up some duties at his major place of work. So, Brian, though, do you want to lead the election of officers? We need to select a chair, and then that person can take over the meeting.
Sure. Is this on?
Should be.
Okay.
Yeah, he says it's on.
So anyway, election of officers. So do I have any nominations for a chair for the Budget Committee?
I nominate Brian Green for chair.
I'll second.
Do we have any other nominations?
Close it.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I guess I'm the chair. All right, do we have any nominations for vice chair?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Susan Waukee.
I'll second that. Any other nomination? Well, yeah, any other nominations? I don't know if we need a second, but it's been seconded. No other nominations. All those in favor of Susan Waukee for vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Susan is the vice chair. All right, let's proceed with the presentation of the budget from Mr. Robertson, our budget officer.
Thank you. And welcome everybody again. Thanks for taking the time. This is an important meeting for the district. You were all here last year, so it makes it simpler to kind of go through this process. The idea for me is to just go through each section of the budget as we did last year, and take little breaks in between. And if you have any, quick questions, we can take those then. And then, additional questions at the end, and then you have a public comment period, which right now we're just one person out in the audience, but there may be more. Then come back, have your committee discussion, and then make a recommendation to the budget, of the budget, including whatever levy would be included in that. So, this is our meeting here. The budget was released. Like I said, you'll make a recommendation, hopefully by the end of this meeting. If you need more than multiple meetings, you're obviously welcome to do so. The June meeting, though, would be the next governing body meeting, and we'll have a hearing on your recommendation. Mission of the district, I always put this up. I think it's important just to reflect on improve water quality, the environment for fish and wildlife, recreational opportunities, safe and efficient navigation in the economy, and then also just to increase public awareness, public access, and public education. Serving about 8,000 properties, 11,000 plus citizens, and really all of Oregon, because it's a state-owned water body that you're helping restore. Current goals, these are existing, and then the big one with the big asterisk, of course, is the harmful algal blooms, which was introduced last time we had this meeting, and now we have even a more direct focus on aeration and oxidation. But you've got your 7 goals: managing aquatic vegetation, septic tank revitalization as far as a mandatory inspection program, improving the lake, utilizing the LID process and new technology for sewering the lake, being number 3 there. And these are just listed and not in any particular order, just as what they were given originally. Promoting the lake, obviously there's one additional one there, number 4. Determining the source of E. coli, which we've done a bit of that. Promoting Devils Lake as a recreational opportunity, and continuing to protect and rehabilitate the shoreline vegetation. But again, the harmful algal blooms really is driving this budget as it did last budget. Then you have other programs that you have, communications, long list there, including email, this public access, streaming, the Know Your Lake articles, radio interviews. Our website is obviously a cost, but also a time user to keep that live and informative. We've got some trainings that we attend. Typically, we have lake level management associated with impoundment right and the D River Dam. Some emergency dredging of the D River on occasion through the winter. And then lots of outreach programs listed here. Continuing on, additional things that the district does each year. We're involved in property and planning issues. That's actually going to be maybe more extensive over the next couple of years relative to the comprehensive plan review that the city is undergoing soon. We have a safety program. We have our Save Our Shorelines program. We'll talk about that later. Quite a bit of signage that you have in the watershed, and another one, this total maximum daily load, which is a process that DEQ is running that we participate in relative to water quality in Devils Lake and the rest of the mid-coast. Speaking of water quality, you have monitoring programs that typically are summertime, recreational period. We've got the bacterial source tracking, mentioned that earlier. But the E. coli and the harmful algal bloom surveillance program are the main portions of those programs. And then we participate in emergency preparedness through the city, as well as we have offering of our internship program. So all of your funds are directed in 2 parts towards trying to achieve those goals and projects. Quick history of your general fund. This is the most recent data showing the most recent dip of what was spent relative to what was collected, and that was because this actually these general funds collected and spent are actually include improvement funds, so there's a little correction to that there. But that's why you're not spending as much in the improvement fund that you had as relative to the overall monies that you collected. As a result, your assets are actually have a trajectory up again now, as they had been since basically 2005, where you saw a steady incline in net assets, and then the district had a dip in its net assets because it was actually just spending money on projects and additional staff. So that's what explains that change. Overall, you've got about $500,000 in net assets. Long range forecast. Still steady, anticipate able to achieve the 3% annual growth. Within this budget includes this urban renewal portion that it was released last year and again this year, and will continue for up to 10 years of about $26,000 annually plus 3%. So that's included and for long range as well.
Paul, is that after the 20% that has been recommitted to urban renewal?
Yes. So
the 26 is?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Actually, I believe I stand corrected. The 26 was the full estimate, I believe, of the 100%. And then, I think that's right. And actually, I think what we got last year was $20,000 or $21,000. Okay. So yes, thank you. Upcoming year in brief. So, mentioned 3% increased funding. We can expect that, I believe. No recommendation as far as changes in level of personal services. The material and services, though, we expect a significant change, mostly due to electrical demand to run compressors with the aeration oxidation process that would be built on the lake at least sometime. If it was not in this fiscal year, it would be in the next fiscal year. So planning at least in advance to seeing that requirement. there's $27,000 in there for that. It's not going to be cheap to run compressors 24/7. The DNA monitoring, recommending it be defunded. Last year we put $5,000 in there. I'm thinking right now we have enough information relative to what in that program already to just let that sit for at least a year. And then you'll see a reduction in debt service as far as the repayment of debt, and that'll be reflected in the needs of having cash available to basically fund the electrical demand. So basically reducing the district's capacity to borrow money, but still allowing a significant amount of borrowing. Reduction in contingency, and then there's outlay for capital outlay for potential printer replacement. That's all the general fund. The improvement fund you see all listed, and we'll go through those one by one. So this summary, it's in the packet, it's online. In fact, this whole presentation is online. I was able to get it up earlier, well actually last night. And so this is just your worksheet, and as you remember the budget setup, we've got the narrative, and then we start the worksheets, effectively page 32 of this packet. That's where these numbers come from. And so this is just the summary LB1, which was fairly newly implemented at the state level when they changed how local budget law was in the last couple of years. But you'll see that your beginning balances are summed here for all funds, and then your total resources, and then the total requirements matching, and then a breakout of staffing relative to those funds. And the district, I put 1.25 full-time equivalents. The 2.5 is the intern, and that's really paid for out of material and services, but that's staff that you're utilizing, so I've added those in. General fund resources, so expecting about $442,000, of which 52% of that is from current taxes. That would be taxes you would be receiving in the upcoming year, about $230,000 plus. The net working capital, that's the largest net working capital that we've had, $102,000 plus there. And that's carryover from this closeout of this year. That could change relative to whatever might be spent additional that's not been forecasted. But this is a large transfer that'll go into the improvement fund, and it'll be available for improvement fund projects. And some of that is from the previous fiscal year too as well. So there's about 70-30 mix there percentage-wise of that net working capital coming from mostly this closeout of this fiscal year. The unappropriated ending fund balance is another $100,000 worth of monies that you have. That'll be funds that you will utilize in the basically July 1 through, say, November 1 or even December 1st until taxes are recovered. And then the delinquent taxes I've actually upped. These have always been an estimate, but I think we've been underestimating them significantly, so I've moved those up to what I think is more representative of what we can expect. Requirements as such, material and services is the big portion, 138 plus, that's 31%. Your transfer is 23% of that, again, total $442 plus $1,000. You got to institute the unappropriated ending fund balance, so you've got that $100,000 sitting there. Debt service, I mentioned, is a decrease from last year, proposing only $15,000. Small capital outlay, personal services is 19%, and having no change from last year. And then I mentioned a drop in the contingency funds from what was proposed last year and actually budgeted. So just to round out the material and services, we've got accounting dollars there, consulting, that includes your intern. The elections, we pay for each half of the election in each year, so it's about $900 for what will be effectively paid for the election process this year. Equipment, $31,320. Erosion sediment, just basically a space holder. Insurance and bonds, about $3,600. Lake level management, slight increase there, $8,000. Legal budget, $3,020. Monitoring, slight decrease because we're taking out that DNA portion, $16,550. Nutrient control, again, placeholder. Office operations basically steady, $22,490. Public relations, again, steady, just looking at how those funds would be spent potentially. Training and education, again, steady from last year. Transportation basically flat as well. So that's your materials and services component, which is the only detailed portion of the general fund. So I thought maybe I'd just break there and answer any questions you had relative to the general fund. Seeing not anybody raising their hand, I'll just continue. Okay, the improvement fund is your other half of your budget. Proposing here use of the existing reserve with the addition of $102,000+ from the general fund. Basically, is about 50% of that budget. You've seen this figure before, because what we've anticipated in previous years, or more or less this figure before, is basically loans of up to $400,000. Now, if you only have $15,000 to do debt service, then you need to bring your anticipated loan down considerably in half, and that's what's shown here. But then also, given the fact that your aeration oxidation project, if with a solid plan and moving forward, I feel that there's a good opportunity to secure grants to help fund that. And so I think that that's going to be an integral part to getting those monies is through some grant applications that we would proceed with. Requirements, I've kind of alluded to this, at least in part. You've got a capital outlay which is broken out. Now this is just a full list. We'll go through these one by one. Capital outlay of $300,000 plus, basically 51%. Material and services of like $408,000. Personal services basically zero. And then should the district be able to acquire the $200,000 loan and a $200,000 grant, we would still have approximately $77,000 left over, of which it would certainly benefit the district to have those monies, because you'd actually be funding all the projects as well as having reserve. That might be a high expectation, but it certainly provides a little buffer. And assumingly, if you only got, say, a $100,000 loan, well, you'd have at least 3/4 of that still in reserve that you could utilize to supplement that other gap. Now, the big cost, and these are, of course, estimates, and certainly on the upper limit on the consulting, the contracting, the equipment are, just as well, just estimates. But we have working to get a engineering plan through a direct, and we talked about this last night at the meeting, up to $100,000 is what the district can spend. So that's what I've put in here, just so should that be needed, there would be the monies there. Equipment, we've had some stabs at this for cost of equipment. I think $350,000 might be a pretty good number. That may change, and that's of course would come through the actual RFP process based on the approved engineering plan. And then contracting would be supplement to the equipment, and so they're just kind of different pots of money, because you'd have basically somebody putting this machinery in and that sort of thing, which would be a material and service cost. Vegetation management, this is the exact same from last year. We've talked about this extensively, but basically you have an existing consultant that has about $10,000 left on that contract, and then there's fees for associated with mapping, hardware and software, and actually for the fish themselves, which is a small fraction of maybe the funds that would go into such a project. Sewer, this is a slight modification from previous year. The district had put in incentive grants a few years ago, and then last year had estimated that we could supplement costs associated with the environmental review of the sewer master plan and the sewer environmental review section of the sewer master plan, I guess. That has been funded by the city outright, so we haven't had to contribute that, so we brought that down to just the 30,000 original. And basically putting forward here the idea of not only maybe incentive grants, but kind of just broadening the scope of this to outreach and education associated with local improvement districts and that sort of thing. And that was kind of the feedback I got from the last budget meeting, and this kind of incorporates that thinking to my understanding at least. Save Your Shorelines, Save Our Shorelines project, SOS, $15,000, same funding level here as in previous years. We haven't spent $15,000 a year recently, but in previous years we certainly had a good $12,000, I think, because we had the big projects, say at Regatta Grounds. Dam replacement, the district is looking at replacing the structure. We have some estimates of removal for that of about $25,000. The replacement structure would actually be fairly cheap. Just actually some materials and then just some permitting costs associated with that.
Hey, back up there, Paul. The addition there is wrong.
Yeah, do I have an extra 500 in that thing? It's way wrong, probably, isn't it? Let me see here.
26,250, 27,350 is what I get.
27,350.
26,850.
Yeah, I apologize for that. There must be a little error in my spreadsheet there where I just have the, yeah, okay. And I have this as a typo. This 500 is a typo from what's in the budget. So the budget has a slight error in it then too, but also this slide. So thank you. So that should be 27,350. Is that what we agreed on?
That's what I get just looking at it, but
Yeah.
I'll trust your addition there.
26,850. And that, okay, and that.
Oh, 26,850 in the book, but what's on the slide is different.
Yeah, that 500
On the
should
slide is 27,350. So
Yeah.
So 26,850 should be then the number, because the slide is
The slide's
is
incorrect.
incorrect as well. There's a 25,500 error there. So thank you for that.
oh, okay.
So that, with that correction, it would basically just change monies left over. So that shouldn't be too hard to adjust. And yeah, I must just have a cell that didn't get added in the Excel sheet that your budget populates from. So I'll correct that. East Devils Lake Road, we heard a lot about this last night. Basically, there's $4,088 left of a $5,000 grant to Salmon Drift Creek Watershed Council. We would propose that going forward, obviously, here. But yeah, some good headway on this project we heard about last night. So, educational video, left this in here because I think it's just a solid project if we actually able to dedicate the staff time to further develop these, but it does take quite a bit of staff time, as a lot of these things do. But I think the value of this outreach video was pretty extensive, and so just including that. Fish and Wildlife, basically just expanding the language in here based on kind of what the Budget Committee said last time, calling it a Fish and Wildlife Protection Fund for $10,000, and then you have in that overall Fish and Wildlife material and services, another $10,000 carryover from a grant that you gave, or a match that you gave to the Salmon Drift Creek Watershed Council, again for some culvert replacement on Thompson Creek that they're following up a second application to OWEB with, and we broke that out basically to allow them to do the stream survey in advance of the actual grant application, but still totaling up to $10,000. So combined, you have $20,000 there. Recreation is not funded proposed in this current project proposal, mostly because this would be a pretty extensive staff time commitment, and while you do have dollars reserved for, potentially other expenditures where you could fund this, I didn't really see this as being something you'd be expending too much time on and thus money in this upcoming fiscal year. And then monitoring, this is supplementing the general fund kind of where you actually pay for your reagents and that sort of thing with just some additional equipment. And we've talked about the spectrophotometer for quite a while, and it could be, I think, a real valuable resource to the district. And the incubator is associated with an increased anatoxin, which is a harmful algal bloom toxin. And then the sonde, French for probe, as shown on the right here, basically a device that when we're looking at the harmful algal blooms, there's sensors that you can have that actually detect the surrogates for harmful algal blooms, which is a nice, measurable thing that you can collect, simple, doesn't require, much effort relative to, or technical expertise beyond just putting the probe in the water and reading a number, versus, say, cell identification is a very intensive process, as is just your toxin monitoring. So up to $12,000 proposed for monitoring in this budget. And then other items, these are non-project items, and looking at no personal services really, there's a dollar kind of placeholder, just some bank fees associated that's not already a project identified. Capital outlay, you've got your transportation, which is the truck, and the boat. Those are two separate items. And then debt service, which is, again, not applicable in this side of the budget. And then so within the improvement fund, those categorizations, basically there's your personal services of $1, material and services for the $310, and this is basically just that pie chart again that you saw earlier. Material and services, I mentioned in the capital outlay, largely equipment for harmful algal bloom, the aeration project, and then some reserve, which as I mentioned, based on my math error, which I apologize again for, would just be reduced somewhat to reflect what was actually proposed. Full budget summary, this would be basically taken from that LB1 again, which you saw, and is one of your worksheets, just shown here for a total of $1,239,029, which includes basically both funds, including the transfers. So that's what I proposed for your budget for 2015-2016.
All right, any questions or comments from Budget Committee members?
Paul, I was wondering, just because there's a lot of interest in the Thompson Creek project, could you elaborate on that just a little? I know last year's attempts didn't get funded, so they're trying again. I think people might be interested in what you're doing there.
So you're talking about the DNA
Fish and Wildlife piece.
Oh, okay, thank you. So the Salmon Drift Creek Watershed Council actually had put forward a grant to OWEB and Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, OWEB, lottery funds effectively. And in order to attract grants, you need match, oftentimes, and cash match in particular is helpful. And so the district not only provided some cash match, but actually some staff in-kind match too to help supplement that application. It didn't get funded in that first round of applications, and basically we're looking at 5 culverts up the system, up Thompson Creek, which is over there by the radio tower for folks that are not as sure where that is. But anyway, on the east side of the lake, second largest tributary, and as a strong coho run. We've got coho salmon that are in that system. I think 2 winters ago, Fish and Wildlife, Salmon Drift Creek Watershed Council, and myself, we went up that system. We found, I think, 44 large adult coho in that system. Really remarkable. And so the project is sound. I mean, I think everyone really thought the project was sound from OWEB all the way down. It was just that they wanted stream profile in that application. They were a little uncomfortable with the granting it kind of a design build kind of way. They wanted it more pre-designed. So in order to get that design, they broke it apart to get the stream survey, which we've basically funded, and then the $7,000 left over would just go towards that grant match reapplication.
So in this budget year, is this funding the survey, or are they going to try and get another grant to actually go out physically and start work on the culverts?
Both, yeah. So the 3,000. So of the 10, 3,000 would be for the survey, and then 7,000 approximately would be for the grant match.
Great. I think a lot of people would be happy to hear that.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, in this last winter, so I mentioned 2 winters ago, we found 44 salmon in Thompson Creek. Property owner on Neatsu Creek, smaller tributary but also important, basically discovered coho salmon in that system, and then we went out and documented 6 coho salmon in Neatsu Creek, the first documentation of coho in that system to our knowledge. So very exciting, and I think reason to keep monies available for coho and other fish and wildlife in their budget.
Paul, I was going to ask, this last fiscal year we budgeted $25,000 for grants. Did we get any grants, or did we apply for any of those that receive those funds?
No, we did not. Those were mostly, well, I'm trying to recall, but no. Short answer, no. Yeah.
And then for this next fiscal year, we have $200,000 budgeted. Have we identified specific grants that we're going to go for and timelines and everything to get those in, or is that just a guesstimate of what we're going to try to do?
Well, it's a little bit of both. So I've got a couple ideas, certainly, for some grant opportunities, grant funders, particular entities more than maybe their specific grants, although the OWEB general restoration grant, it would be something that I think the district would apply for. And there are timelines associated with that for October as well as April submissions.
Mm-hmm.
So those would be two timelines to consider. The key, though, is you have to have a plan. So you have to have that engineering plan
mm-hmm.
to move forward from. So yes, so that if
Okay.
that answers your question.
Well, it seems like that's a critical, $200,000 is a critical amount of money for moving forward with our aeration, if that's where we're going to get those monies. And by the time we get our engineering and everything done, and then we need to make sure, I guess, to be on those to make sure we can hit the timelines. I think it's a great project. I'm excited about it, but $200,000 of the 400 is in grants, and so I think it would just need to be prepared to do that, have those identified.
Yeah, and absolutely, and also, again, having that engineering plan allows you to make those applications.
Mm-hmm.
So inherently there's time because you have to get the engineering plan too.
I know that last night in our discussion, is there any idea of when that engineering plan might be available if we go forward with Dr. Horn?
My estimation would be probably you'd have at least 3 months lag time from the time you've contracted. You want them to take their time.
Oh, right, I know that.
I think that's the key. And haste, certainly is waste in a lot of things. And so, 3 months for sure, I would guess out. And then, this is a long time coming, a project like this size. And, certainly, say, the grass carp project is a long time coming as well. And they take a lot of time. Permitting, we're still not there for a grass carp.
Right.
There's a large window. And just even, say, on a shoreline project, as you're familiar with it, it's time consuming.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it's a lot of time and effort, and well worth it, though.
Mm-hmm. I just didn't know if we had kind of that. So we're looking at, if we contract with Dr. Horn, then we're looking at probably fall to have some kind of an engineering report from him.
I think that would be a fair estimate, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Paul, I think I ask this question every year, but if I do, I don't remember the answer. And that is, I can't, again, having a hard time reconciling materials and services on LB1 with the only other place I see it is in the general fund, materials and services. In the, on LB1 it's $449,000. On LB31, the general fund is $138,739, and I know that there's an explanation in the budget about how you have to break it out, but
Yeah,
give us the simplified version.
Yeah, it's in the LB11 is the one that also is in that from the improvement fund. So you have numbers here, and they're broken out. You don't have the sum shown on that worksheet there, but basically on the second half of the LB11 from line 17 to 24, I believe it is, you have subsections of material and services within the improvement fund. So if you have those go into the total from your LB31, which is your general fund, and then all those numbers go into the LB1 for the total material and services. So you have basically the funds that you're not seeing or that are from the improvement fund.
Okay, and in terms of flexibility, being able to move money around, do we have the ability to move around in the $449,000 zone, or just within the improvement fund or the general fund in terms of materials and services?
It's by
I'm not even sure I'm asking the right question.
Yeah, I think I know what you're asking. By resolution, it's within fund, so you can move money within the fund. And so of the improvement fund dollars, say if you had you dedicated, say, 125 for consulting and you really needed 150, but you didn't need that much in contracting, you could just move that by resolution straight away up to the full $310,000. So in the general fund, it would be the sum of the material and services, which is like $138,000 that you can move within that fund, within that material and service by resolution. And if you need to do something additional, then you would do a supplemental budget.
Okay, thank you.
If I could go back to the grant system in it, because that is so important. I know there's the 319 grants, but there's a timeline there that I think maybe we missed for this year. I'm not quite sure if we get funding for that or not. I might be wrong on that. And anyway, the timing's critical, so those are all great opportunities, whether it's in this year or next year. I've talked about it a couple times and did a little looking into it. Recently, the reauthorization of the Harmful Algae Bloom and Hypoxia Research Control Act, that's a mouthful. But from what that was spearheaded by Susan Bonamici, I understand there's $20.5 million a year available on that for 2018. I tried to find, going into grants.gov that's a mystery for sure, but
certainly can be.
But as I understand it, it's administered by NOAA, and that might be something that would really be potentially a really great asset for the aeration project. So I'd just suggest maybe you peek into that one.
Yeah.
I thought it was the EPA that was doing it, but I found out it's actually NOAA that's doing that grant opportunity. So, and wouldn't that be awesome for to have the one who spearheaded it to get a project in her backyard? So, yeah.
Agreed. Thank you. So, Kip, we've just been working through the budget presentation. So, basically, everything that you've heard more or less or would have missed is in the budget. So, having reviewed the budget is we have had notice of a slight change, an error that I made there on the reserve fund for in the dam replacement, it should be 26,850, but instead of 26,100. So that's, I think, the only correction.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay. Any other any public comment? Everybody's looking at you, Don.
You're on the spot, Don. Kind of hit. Come on up. Come on up. That way you're on the mic.
Okay. Down south, 2165 northeast east Devil's Lake Road. Mary and I run the Lake House Bed and Breakfast. We've done that for 20 years. And since the big flood of '96, we've had water go across East Devil's Lake Road. Been some Band-Aid approaches, and I hear now that the county's going to work again this summer or in the near future to remodel a culvert or a bridge. Since that's the road is kind of a sensitive place. I mean, the escape from Tsami's coming out of it's on the Tsami Road Watch. It'd probably be on the NASA, our security administration. Something happens to the bridge on 101 or someplace for an alternate route, or there's wrecks up on 101. East Devil Lake is a alternate route to go downtown or go whatever way the people are going. And traffic has really picked up since Bi-Mart went in. And we know that if in time the sewers go in, the road itself is going to explode because there's acres and acres of prime land to be developed on the east side of the lake. And I just wonder why the county and the state and local people, why they can't get hold of our good senators, Wyden, Merkel, whoever's in the office, because we're blowing money every other place. If that's something that's quite sensitive to this community and to the state and all the tourists that come in here, why we have Brian, a lawyer, people with budget sense, to really push the idea to transportation to see what could be done to fix that road so it'd be permanent instead of the Band-Aid approaches all the time. That's it.
Thank you, Don. And in fact, the cost is the prohibitive factor, but there is some movement, actually from the governor's office, to try to find a solution. The money is a tremendous problem. Yeah, but at least it's actually at the governor's level, so it's got some high level attention, and that's better than no attention. And we can't tell you more than that. If you want to look at the manager's report from last night's meeting, it explains that better about where we're at. I'm sorry, we've only been at this for less than an hour, but I would appreciate it if we could take maybe just a 5-minute break, and we'll get back here. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so if we don't have any more public comment, I think we're having technical difficulties here. All right, any more public comment? Any committee discussion about the budget?
Yeah, I'd
Oppose the budget.
just on the language of the budget. This is just a thought, but I'd love to present an idea here. I was reading through on page 4 and 5 the priorities, and I understand they're kind of informed by the survey that was done, and that's a great way. But I thought possibly, or would suggest, maybe the sentence that follows the list of the priorities, the numerical one at the top of page 5, potentially could be adjusted to accommodate making the aeration project a priority as opposed to kind of a footnote to those priorities, since part of this is describing the budget to current and maybe future people who are looking back and wondering why the money was spent on what. And since the majority of the money is being spent on or being proposed to be spent on the aeration project, it seems like potentially it could be up here in one of these priorities. So perhaps that just the wording up there could be changed, that the board was informed by these, because I think it's a fairly accurate statement. They were informed by the survey and established priorities, because clearly with attending the board meetings, the aeration project is a priority that's higher than not on the list. It's just a suggestion, but maybe it could be made up there, so because it is where most of the money's going. So it seems a little funny. I mean, it works the way that it is, but it may be clearer in the future. It isn't really changing much in the way of words. It's really just kind of, maybe you can at least, if not that, maybe you can add something to the sentence about that further discussions, this has been risen, you can leave the wording the way it is, to a higher, high priority for the district or something, so that somebody in the future will look back and go, oh, I got it, that's why they spend all that money. So it just seems like kind of a footnote right now. So,
well, on page 4, though, halfway down, it's the topic of budget priorities for 2015-2016 and summary of recent activities. It says very explicitly, harmful algal bloom reduction is the primary focus of the district.
I know, but the aeration project in particular, I don't know, I just
and then it continues
could make
on
it seem more important here. It's just a thought.
To relay and then the last sentence of that same page, it says the district has thus set itself, these other priorities too. So those are, I mean, obviously anything can be clear, but my goal was to put it right next to the topic heading too of priorities.
Okay,
I mean, Mitch, I agree with you. When I read through it, I had a hard time transitioning there when I was reading that narrative. I guess.
How it should. It's just something to make. I mean, clearly the board is committed to the aeration project as a high priority because there's a lot of money going that way, and I just thought it seemed like kind of a footnote there, and that's just a suggestion. You don't have to take it.
Well, I mean, it looks like more than a footnote. I mean,
that's maybe not the right way to describe it, but it's just. I just read through it and I go, "Where's aeration?" kind of thing, and it's because it's so important. So
mentally, you get locked in here.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I had my challenge was. When I was transitioning into the priority list, I was like, it got lost mentally for me.
You see 1 through 7.
Because I see 1 through 7.
And those are the existing goals.
And I think all you have to add
to A, maybe, and then subset. I don't know. I'm just using what's established. The goals, and then with the very clear, representation that, the primary focus is the aeration, harmful algal bloom reduction, which, was vetted out last meeting, last hearing too, and is stated again in the major variances too, is just saying,
I don't have any problem that it probably should be number one. The problem is I think that that's a board function to amend our list of priorities and not the function of this budget committee. So
I think
and
that
I think it's been handled about as well as it could in the budget message. And I don't know if we want to get in the business today of amending the list of
yeah.
well, we can. Yeah, so I mean, I think we should take Mitch's suggestion that maybe at a near future board meeting, we ought to amend our list.
I think you could say something simply like the budget, the priorities were, like it does more or less here, other things, but just simply add a statement that says, while recognizing this was the list, aeration has risen to be a very important priority for the district, and it's just add a sentence in there, something like that, to explain why so much money's going that way. It doesn't take much. Now we've all talked about it, it seems like, oh, well, it's obvious, but when you read it the first time, it does create a question mark. Why is so much money going to that? And it's kind of down here, so good.
So I got a suggestion for you, Paul. The last sentence on page 4, if you move that on top of the number 1 through 7, it says the district has thus previously set itself these 7 priorities listed below. By moving that sentence over there, then it kind of explains that, hey, these are all the goals, the priorities.
so that sentence to the top of page 5.
Exactly.
Right.
Because then you understand that, okay, these are the previous goals, previous priorities. So that makes it a whole lot more clear. And if you want to add something else, fine. But the problem is you jump from this page to that page and you lose that. So
It's just a little thing,
Didn't have
but
a line return
make it
where
read
you
a little
needed
better.
one, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I mean, I don't discount the comment. I just felt like I tried to do that, and in fact, again, at the end of the section, page 7, which is the very end of the section, and the beginning again saying harmful algorithm is the big, you know, at the very end it says, the budget that follows seeks to address the economic needs of all these programs, but with a focus on aeration oxidation to reduce harmful algal blooms, as noted initially.
I agree. I mean, it just, I thought...
Again, there's
purpose
always
of the
better,
meeting was
but
to
I was,
provide
you know,
input,
just
so.
working with the goals too. Again, like what they were mentioning. It's noted.
Only comment.
I think make it.
Yeah, I know that there could be some. You tell me how appropriate this would be, but I understand that aeration is being used in some lakes for vegetation management and control.
Yeah.
So the aeration project actually kind of fits in number 1, but nobody really recognizes that.
Right, I thought of that.
But
That's absolutely fair to suggest and have in there, yeah, because you know, oxidizing nutrients is making them less available for those nuisance aquatic vegetation that, you know, predominated the lake at one time and would again.
I don't even know if it's appropriate to amend the budget message at this point, or if that's your message that's been delivered to us. But you know, yeah, you might add that to your explanation of priority number 1, that we anticipate some assistance with aquatic vegetation control with the aeration project, or something along those lines.
Certainly true and fair, yeah. Could do. Yeah, typically if there's been like something that, you know, the budget committee's recommended, I've just called that out, budget committee recommendation or addition, and then maybe in italics, and that so that there isn't like this rewrite effectively of the budget message, like, wow, something seems like it changed dramatically, and it just makes it more evident what came secondary to the proposal. And so that's been a way I've handled those things, and I think it makes it more clear, and that it calls it out even more so, and that's how we've done it. And so if you want something like that, I would certainly do it. You know, hitting a paragraph return is also pretty easy. I mean, it's not like a big deal, you know, as far as the other suggestion. So I don't know if I would call that out, but you know, if you look at years ago, previous budgets. Like, you may have had a suggestion, Mitchell, that got into the next iteration, and I just made sure that it was clear that, in fact, such that if you did go to look through the budget message again, somebody that looked at it, previous to the hearing or the committee meeting, and then subsequent to that, it would be really evident, and it would be, it would be called out, so it would be easier to find. You wouldn't have to read every, square inch again.
It would just be nice, general, if we just started explaining. There is an interplay between the aeration project and the grass carp application. That is that, if aeration works well, we may have less or no need for the grass carp.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fairly substantial point. But again, I don't, and practically, administratively, what does it take to amend this? You're going to have to reprint this thing?
Yeah, well, typically, this goes through 3 iterations. You've got my proposal, that's being proposed, then your recommendation, which then I don't go to the trouble of reprinting it typically unless it really is called out, because it's a big effort and a lot of paper, and we don't really see many people asking for hard copies of this. So but we have a digital new recommendation.
Yeah, but is there a new budget message that comes with when you publish the schedules, the LBs?
Mm-hmm.
You don't redo the budget message as well.
Yeah, I have done with those, called out, say, budget committee recommendation. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. So I've added
All
those bits of the narrative.
Forgetting the extent of the. Oh, well, then.
It's
why don't
not
you make
that
some
big
changes
of a,
along the lines we've discussed?
Yeah, and it's not that big of a change. Another option is just simply, note the discussion in the budget that the aeration project was deemed a priority, and then the minutes will reflect the conversation. And I was just suggesting that in that spot it got lost a little bit. It's not a big deal to change it, but certainly it can be reflected in the minutes for the future too, that there was a discussion about it. It is indeed a high priority, whether it was clear throughout or not. We discussed it, and that's another option as well. So
Mr. Chair?
That's all there is to it.
Yes, sir.
Are we prepared to make a motion for the committee recommendation?
I don't know that. As far as I know, we're still discussing. Is there any further discussion of the regarding the proposed budget?
I had my say.
There being no further discussion, let's move on to the Budget Committee recommendation. We'll have a motion to recommend approval of the budget with the changes that have been discussed.
Mr. Chair, I would move that the committee recommend adoption of the budget as proposed with I believe there's a change to the dam replacement numbers, replacement total, acceptance of the tax levy.
I'll second that. Discussion?
Do we need to specify the amount of the tax levy in the motion, or is that a separate motion? Or
I think it would be helpful to do that at this time. You can refer to pages 37 and 38 as far as what's in the proposed tax, proposed amounts being .2499 per 100,000 for the inside watershed rate and .1280 per 100,000, or with
outside the water.
for the outside rate.
But isn't that already included in his motion? I mean,
well, it could be explicit too. It's helpful to have it in there. They've kind of asked for that more recently, to be more explicit in those kind of motions. So yeah, I would think that'd be recommended as well, yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you withdraw?
Okay, I withdraw my motion.
And?
Make a motion recommending adoption of the budget as proposed with the changes for the dam removal, total, and acceptance and approval of the tax levy, which is at page 37 and 38 of the budget document. The inside watershed permanent rate limit of 0.2499, and the outside watershed rate amount levied at 0.128.
I'll second that motion. Further discussion? Well, we can't know the exact dollar amount because we don't know the amount of the assessment.
I might add a story to my house.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't know the total value of the property being assessed, so that we can't know the assessment value, so we can't put a dollar figure on it at this point.
Robert, you're going to probably have to scoop up to the mic.
Very few people. But it's there, and if you want to study it, it can be figured out. But, yeah, the budget process is a little bit obscure, but all we can do is specify a rate and an approximate. The budget does say what we're likely to estimates what we're going to receive in revenue, and that's about the best we can do.
The rate's the same. Yeah. The tax rate is the same every year.
And the previous year's receipts are shown. In LB1, or page 34. Well, that adds in some other stuff.
Page 32. The last entry on the top section says property taxes or property taxes estimated to be received.
That'd be the one. Yeah.
So that shows projected for 15-16, present year and last year.
I've had this question come up several times over the last few years about how much people have to pay, and basically the way I explain it to them is I just tell them that it's 25 cents per thousand if you live within the watershed. It's 12.5 cents roughly if you live outside. So if your home is valued, tax assessed value, not market, but tax assessed value at $100,000 inside the watershed, you're going to pay 25 bucks. So if it's 200, you're going to pay 50 bucks. And if you're outside the watershed, take that in half. So if your house is $100,000, then you pay $12.50 into the district. And that seems to satisfy most people's understanding of how it works and how much they end up paying. So at 100 and 200, and people can compute the numbers really quick if they don't have their tax statements available.
Yeah, that's a good explanation.
Layman style.
Yeah, I always say like the full rate or the half rate, and the half rate is almost half, like you said. It's
close.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think Randy just did about as good a job as can be done. So any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The budget, the motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
And with that, I believe we can adjourn. I have. Shake.